On the planet Virelia, where the sun bathed the crystalline spires in a violet gold glow, the Sarathi people lived by one unyielding law. Each individual could have only one mate in their lifetime. This was not merely a social custom, but a sacred covenant enforced by centuries of tradition and ritual. To choose a mate was to commit every fiber of one's being to another, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Breaking this bond was unthinkable. It was considered an abomination punishable by exile or worse. The Karathi valued honor, loyalty, and adherence to ritual above all else. Their society was built upon the strength of these pairings, and generations of Sarathi had never known a disruption to this sacred order. Kyle, a human, had arrived on Virelia not out of curiosity but as an envoy of Earth. Humans were known across the galaxy for their unpredictable behavior and innate courage. But the Karathi had little reason to believe that a human would interfere with their deeply entrenched traditions. Kyle, however, was not like other beings they had encountered. Unlike the Sarathi, whose every action was guided by ritual and expectation, Kyle moved with spontaneity and quiet confidence. He observed the Sarathi festival unfolding before him with a mixture of awe and fascination, his sharp human eyes noting the intricate dances, the shimmer of iridescent scales, and the subtle glances of those about to choose their lifelong mates. Lyra, a young Sarathi woman, stood out among the crowd. Her violet-tinged scales reflected the festival's golden light, creating a halo-like effect that drew attention even before she moved. Her silver eyes were striking, seeming to pierce through both Kale and the crowd around her. She was graceful, yet independent, her posture radiating confidence and intelligence. While other Sarathi waited obediently for their destined mate to approach, Lyra's demeanor suggested that she was unafraid to challenge the established norms. Kale was instantly intrigued, not just by her beauty or elegance, but by the unmistakable spark of individuality she possessed. The festival itself was a spectacle of ritual and tradition. The culmination, known as the ritual of choice, required one Sarathi to step forward and select their mate, signified by placing a ceremonial mark upon the chosen partner. This mark was sacred, a binding symbol that no law, no argument, and no outside influence could override. It was both a declaration of love and a formal recognition of commitment, witnessed by the entire community. Typically, the ritual proceeded without disruption, the chosen and the selector following the steps precisely as dictated by ancient custom. Kyle, however, acted in a manner that no Sarathi could have anticipated. Moving with calm determination, he walked uninvited onto the dais where the ritual was taking place. His approach was not brash or arrogant, but deliberate and respectful, a human moving with intent, guided by choice rather than fear or obedience. When he reached Lyra, he performed the act of placing his hand over her heart, mimicking the Sarathi marking tradition exactly. This simple gesture, however, carried monumental weight. A human had claimed a Sarathi in a ritual that no outsider could legally participate in. The crowd gasped in unison. Elders and festival attendees alike froze, struggling to comprehend what had just occurred. In the history of Virelia, no one outside the Sarathi species had ever interfered in the ritual of choice, and certainly no human had ever attempted such an audacious act. Lyra's eyes widened, reflecting shock, anger, and incredulity all at once. Her voice trembled as she said, You cannot do this." Kale's response was measured, his calm smile speaking louder than words. He did not rely on threats, charm, or manipulation. He relied on the power of human determination and genuine intention. By choosing Lyra freely and openly, he had challenged the Sarathi understanding of law and tradition. His actions were bold, unprecedented, and undeniably human. A species that often achieved the extraordinary not by following rules, but by defining their own path. This moment marked the beginning of a chain of events that would forever alter both Kyle's life and Lyra's, as well as the rigid traditions of the Sarathi. It was the first step in a story of courage, choice, and connection. A human and a Sarathi brought together not by duty or expectation, but by mutual recognition and the audacity to act on it. In Part 1, the stage is set for the central conflict of the story. A human who disregards an alien species' sacred law, and the Sarathi who must decide how to respond to an unprecedented challenge. The encounter introduces the key characters, establishes the cultural backdrop, and sets the tone for the trials and revelations to come. After the shocking events of the festival, Kale found himself summoned before the Sarathi Council, a body of elders whose authority and judgment were absolute. Their chambers were a soaring structure of crystalline spires, each surface reflecting the alien light in prismatic patterns, emphasizing both the beauty and the severity of their society. The council's deliberations were both ritualistic and deeply serious. Any act of defiance, especially one as unprecedented as a human claiming a Sarathi, demanded immediate and careful evaluation. Kyle, unflinching, was brought before the assembly, his human composure drawing quiet murmurs from the gathered Sarathi. The eldest of the council, a figure whose scales shimmered in deep silver and whose presence exuded authority, spoke first. "Human," the elder hissed, their voice both melodious and chilling, "you have transgressed the most sacred law of our people. Our species allows only one mate. You cannot claim her. You are an outsider. Your actions disrupt centuries of tradition." Kyle remained calm. In this moment, the human's reputation for audacity and clarity became apparent. He bowed respectfully, acknowledging the weight of their customs without ceding his own agency. "I understand your law," Kale said, his voice steady, resonating with sincerity. "But Lyra and I have chosen each other, not out of duty, not out of ritual, but because we recognize each other. I claim no more than my honest choice. I ask only for recognition of that choice." The council murmured among themselves, their whispers filled with disbelief and skepticism. Humans, after all, were widely regarded as unpredictable, sometimes reckless, and rarely respectful of alien traditions. Yet, there was something different about Kale's demeanor. He was not mocking, nor was he challenging them with arrogance. He was simply stating a fact, a choice made from conviction rather than impulse. Lyra, the Sarathi he had claimed, watched in stunned silence. Her eyes reflected an inner conflict she could not easily resolve. On one hand, the laws and traditions of her species were clear and deeply ingrained. On the other, she could sense the genuine strength and resolve radiating from Kale, qualities that went beyond the rigid structures of her society. There was a magnetic certainty in the human, a combination of fearlessness and sincerity that drew her in despite the risk and her ingrained skepticism. The council, however, could not simply allow a human to override centuries of tradition without some form of verification. One elder, known for their unwavering adherence to custom, proposed a solution: trials. These trials were designed not merely as physical tests, but as demonstrations of character, intelligence, and loyalty, the essential qualities required for one to become a Sarathi mate. "You must prove your worth," the elder declared. "In our tradition, the chosen mate must face trials of strength, wit, and loyalty. Only then may this bond be recognized. Succeed, and perhaps you will be acknowledged. Fail, and you will depart our world immediately." Kale accepted the challenge, without hesitation. He understood that the trials were more than mere tests. They were a way to bridge cultural divides, to show that the principles of courage, intelligence, and dedication were universal, transcending species. The first trial, physical in nature, required competitors to navigate an obstacle course of immense difficulty designed to test strength, agility, and endurance. Many Sarathi, despite their natural prowess, struggled with these trials, which combined elements of terrain, aerial maneuvering, and combat simulations. To the surprise of the Sarathi, Kyle's approach was unorthodox but effective. He did not rely solely on brute force. He relied on observation, adaptability, and the human instinct to improvise. He moved with precision, anticipating challenges and overcoming obstacles in ways no Sarathi expected. The crowd, initially skeptical, watched in astonishment as the human not only completed the course, but excelled. Each step he took shattered preconceived notions of human limitation, leaving observers whispering among themselves, questioning whether the rules of biology and expectation applied at all to this audacious species. Lyra's initial skepticism began to soften. She had anticipated failure, or at least hesitation, yet Kale's display of strength and intelligence forced her to reconsider her judgment. While she could not openly admit it, her respect and curiosity for the human began to grow. He was not merely surviving her world's challenges. He was thriving, redefining what she had thought possible. Part 2 concludes with the foundation of trust and recognition being laid. Kyle has demonstrated that his choice is not impulsive or reckless. It is grounded in capability, courage, and unwavering commitment. The stage is set for deeper tests of loyalty and emotional connection, and the Karathi are now confronted with a reality they could never have imagined, a human who can not only challenge their traditions, but potentially become worthy of them. After Kale's remarkable success in the first trial, which tested his physical prowess and adaptability, the Sarathi elders prepared the next phase, a trial of loyalty. This trial was far more subtle and insidious than the first, as it was designed not to measure raw strength, but the depth of commitment and the capacity to resist temptation. In Sarathi culture, loyalty was paramount. It was the cornerstone of their sacred law of monogamy. No union could be honored unless both partners could demonstrate unwavering dedication, even in the face of deception, distraction, or danger. The trial was deceptively simple in structure, but profoundly complex in execution. Kale and Lyra were separated into two labyrinthine chambers, each tailored to their respective species. For Lyra, the chamber exploited mental illusions and emotional triggers, drawing upon the rich traditions and symbols of Sarathi culture. Kale's chamber, however, was designed to challenge his adaptability, his reasoning, and his emotional focus. Holographic illusions presented him with temptations ranging from false crises involving Lyra to promises of immense power or knowledge. Each scenario required him to make choices that revealed the depth of his commitment, the clarity of his focus, and the authenticity of his intentions. Kale's human instincts, combined with his unique perspective on loyalty, allowed him to navigate the trial with extraordinary efficiency. Unlike the Sarathi, who were trained to follow prescribed responses to these challenges, Kale relied on observation, critical thinking, and his emotional connection to Lyra. When confronted with an illusion of Lyra in danger, he paused, considered the situation, and realized the scenario was fabricated. He did not panic or act rashly. Instead, he focused on his guiding principle. His choice to claim Lyra was deliberate and unwavering, and no illusion could alter that truth. Lyra, meanwhile, was undergoing a parallel experience, though her challenges were framed in ways her species would naturally recognize as tests of fidelity and discernment. She faced visions that questioned her feelings for Kale, offering illusions of other potential mates, threats of societal disapproval, and temptations of comfort and power. As she navigated these scenarios, she became increasingly aware of her own emotional depth and capacity for genuine connection. Despite her initial shock at Cale's boldness in claiming her, she began to see the humanity beneath his actions. A combination of courage, honesty, and unshakable determination that mirrored the qualities the Sarathi valued most. During the trial, Cale and Lyra remained connected in ways imperceptible to the council. Sarathi traditions allowed for a spiritual tether between those claimed or claiming a mate, and though Cale was human, he was attuned to this subtle energy. He could sense Lyra's presence, her emotions echoing in the mental landscape of the labyrinth, guiding him even as he faced increasingly complex illusions. Likewise, Lyra felt Cale's resolve radiating outward, a pulse of certainty that bolstered her own determination. This mutual awareness created a bond that transcended species, trial, and expectation. It was a bond born of choice, trust, and the recognition of shared strength. The trials of loyalty were as much about observation as they were about endurance. The Sarathi Council watched from a separate chamber, expecting humans to falter where their species had been trained for centuries. Cale's ability to remain focused, resist temptation, and act with clarity astonished the elders. Even Lyra's adherence to the truth of her feelings, despite the illusions designed to destabilize her, impressed the council. Together, Cale and Lyra demonstrated that loyalty was not merely a matter of ritual compliance, but a conscious, active commitment, something that could transcend species boundaries. When the labyrinthine chambers finally ended, both Cale and Lyra emerged, victorious. Their expressions, though weary, carried something deeper than relief, a mutual recognition of their shared strength and commitment. The crowd and the council, initially skeptical, could no longer deny the authenticity of the bond forming between them. This trial, unlike the first, measured not physical capability, but emotional resilience and fidelity. Cale had proven that he was not only strong, but unwavering in his choice, while Lyra had shown that she could embrace her feelings without fear or hesitation. Part 3, therefore, represents a critical turning point in the story. The trials of loyalty demonstrate that true bonds are built not solely on strength or tradition, but on mutual respect, understanding, and choice. Cale and Lyra's success begins to redefine the Sarathi perception of humans, not as unpredictable outsiders, but as capable of deep. After surviving the trials of strength and loyalty, Cale and Lyra approach the final stage of the Sarathi mating process, a trial not of force or endurance, but of the heart. In Sarathi tradition, this was the most sacred and decisive test, the declaration. Unlike previous trials, which measured capability and perseverance, the declaration demanded honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to express one's emotions openly in front of the entire community. It was the culmination of centuries-old customs, the moment when choice became covenant and commitment became binding. The ceremonial hall was unlike any Cale had seen before. Its soaring walls were constructed of translucent crystal, refracting the light of Virelia's twin suns into a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across the chamber floor. Elders, citizens, and ceremonial observers gathered in solemn silence, their eyes fixed upon the central dais. At the center stood Lyra, her violet-tinted scales gleaming under the refracted sunlight, her posture poised yet tense. Every observer sensed the gravity of this moment, not merely a ritual for a pair of individuals, but a reflection of the enduring values of the Sarathi people. Cale approached with deliberate calm. There was no showmanship, no attempt to impress. The human's presence itself was already extraordinary. He had passed the tests of strength and loyalty, demonstrating adaptability, courage, and devotion. Now, all that remained was the articulation of his commitment in the most fundamental form, his words, spoken from the heart. Taking Lyra's hands in his, Cale looked directly into her eyes, unflinching. His gaze was steady, reflecting not arrogance, or bravado, but a deep sincerity that resonated with something primal in both their species. "I claim you," he said simply, his voice carrying across the hall. "Not because of ritual, not because of law, but because I choose you. One life, one bond, one truth. You are mine, and I am yours. Together we face the galaxy, whatever it may bring." His words were straightforward, lacking embellishment, yet their power was undeniable. The human simplicity conveyed a depth of understanding and intentionality that the Sarathi had rarely witnessed, whereas the traditions of the Sarathi relied heavily on ritualized gestures. Kale relied on the raw truth of his choice. In that moment, he communicated something universal, a principle that transcended species, culture, and custom. Devotion could be proven not only through adherence to law, but through the honesty and clarity of the heart. Lyra's reaction was immediate and profound. At first, her scales flickered with disbelief, a reaction ingrained from a lifetime of strict adherence to custom. She had anticipated challenge, defiance, and perhaps disappointment, yet Kale's words forced an entirely new emotion to surface within her: recognition. She saw clearly and unmistakably the authenticity of his choice. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she placed her hand over his, a gesture that confirmed not only acceptance, but also reciprocity. "Then let it be so," she whispered, her voice firm despite the rapid beating of her heart. "One mate, one bond. Ours." The silence that followed was monumental. The elders exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of astonishment, contemplation, and cautious approval. Kale, a human who had disrupted centuries of tradition, had not only passed the trials, but had honored the spirit of their law. He had demonstrated courage, strength, loyalty, and now, above all, the clarity of heart that the declaration demanded. Lyra, by reciprocating, had shown that choice was mutual and that love could exist beyond the constraints of tradition, yet still uphold its essence. The declaration was transformative, not only for the pair, but for the Sarathi society as a whole. Witnessing the human and Sarathi unite through honesty and intention forced the elders and the citizens to reconsider the rigidity of their customs. Here was an act that maintained the sacredness of the law of one mate while also expanding the understanding of what could constitute a worthy claim. It was both a challenge and an affirmation, a reminder that laws and traditions are most powerful when they serve the spirit, rather than limit the possibilities of the heart. By the end of Part 4, Kale and Lyra had not only formed a legitimate bond, but had become symbols of possibility. The human's audacity, combined with the Sarathi's capacity for acceptance, suggested a new era of cultural flexibility and cross-species understanding. Their declaration transcended ceremony. It was a statement that love, choice, and courage could unite beings in ways that tradition alone could not dictate. This part solidifies the emotional core of the story. The trials and rituals, though significant, culminate in the acknowledgement that true bonds are forged by genuine choice and mutual recognition. Part 4 emphasizes that the heart's courage, willingness to speak, choose, and commit can redefine centuries of tradition, and that such acts of authenticity resonate far beyond the individuals involved, echoing through society as a whole. With the declaration complete, Kale and Lyra had not only passed the trials, but had irrevocably united their fates. The bond between them was now official in the eyes of the Sarathi. A human and a Sarathi claimed and reciprocated in a ceremony that was as emotional as it was revolutionary. Part 5 of the story focuses on the consequences and the broader impact of their union, exploring both personal and societal transformations that stem from their unprecedented connection. As the festival concluded, Kale and Lyra walked side by side through the streets of Virelia. The city, usually silent in moments of ritual completion, now buzzed with whispers, awe, and astonishment. Citizens, elders, and ceremonial attendees alike were visibly struck by the sight of a human unbound by their customs, holding hands with a Sarathi who had just exercised her agency in defiance of expectation. Their presence alone challenged assumptions and provoked reflection. What had begun as a personal choice between two individuals now carried profound societal significance. Humans were known for their unpredictability, but Kale's actions revealed something far more impactful: the courage to act decisively on one's convictions. To the Karathi, who had lived under rigid rules for centuries, this was transformative. Kale's success was proof that strength, loyalty, and honesty could transcend cultural boundaries. It suggested that rigid traditions, while important, could evolve without losing their core values, an idea both thrilling and unsettling to a society built on ritualized adherence. Lyra's role in this transformation was equally vital. Her decision to reciprocate Kale's claim was not a passive acceptance but an act of agency, demonstrating that true commitment required mutual recognition. By choosing to embrace the human, she affirmed that love, loyalty, and courage were qualities that could bridge species differences. Her actions sent a powerful message to other Karathi. Tradition and individuality need not be in conflict. A bond forged by conscious choice could honor both personal desire and cultural values simultaneously. The elders of the council, who had initially been skeptical and cautious, began to acknowledge the broader implications of the union. In their deliberations, it became clear that Kale had not violated the essence of Sarathi law, even if he had circumvented its literal interpretation. By demonstrating exceptional physical prowess, unwavering loyalty, and honest emotional commitment, Kale had proven himself worthy of their traditions in spirit, if not in form. This nuanced understanding allowed the council to recognize a fundamental truth. Laws and rituals are designed to uphold values, not restrict genuine connection. In acknowledging Kale and Lyra, the Sarathi embraced an expanded interpretation of their ancient codes. The union also resonated beyond the city of Virelia. Word of the unprecedented human-Sarathi pairing spread rapidly, reaching distant colonies and neighboring systems. Stories of Kale's boldness, Lyra's discernment, and their mutual courage became legendary. Across the galaxy, species that had long regarded humans with caution or derision began to reconsider their assumptions. Humans were often unpredictable. Yes, but they also embodied qualities that inspired admiration, choice, bravery, and an uncompromising sense of loyalty. Kale and Lyra's story became a symbol of what could happen when civilizations embraced possibility over rigid expectation. On a personal level, the union forged a bond that was far deeper than ceremony or societal acknowledgement. Kale and Lyra had not only claimed each other, they had created a partnership based on understanding, respect, and shared courage. Each challenge they had faced together, from the trials of strength to the labyrinthine tests of loyalty, had strengthened their connection. Their relationship was a testament to the power of deliberate choice. Two beings from entirely different worlds recognizing the value in one another, committing to a shared future despite the odds. By the end of Part 5, the story reaches its resolution. Kale and Lyra's union symbolizes a new era for both their species. The Sarathi, once rigid and unyielding, now have a precedent for re-evaluating tradition in light of authentic choice and merit. Humans, represented by Kale, are no longer merely outsiders, they are potential partners capable of profound impact on alien cultures. Together, Kale and Lyra demonstrate that love, courage, and honesty can transcend species boundaries, cultural expectation, and even centuries of established law. Ultimately, Part 5 emphasizes the story's central HFY theme, humanity's audacity. Adaptability and integrity can reshape entire civilizations, not through conquest or coercion, but T.